Welcome to the Mystical Motherhood Podcast. This is Chelsea, and I want you to create a happy family. I use my background in Western and Eastern medicine, birth, and ancient yogic practices to help the modern mother learn how to live a healthier life and create conscious children. This is your guide to fertility, conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and the early childhood years. Are you ready to live the life of your dreams? This is Mystical Motherhood's episode number 24, and I'm going to speak about my new book, Fertile, which will be introduced to the public in 2019. As you may have known, I have written Mystical Motherhood, which is a book that takes women step by step through the process of conscious conception, fertility, birth, postpartum, and the early childhood years in the hopes of upgrading their family and creating an enhanced child. Fertile's even better because it is a step into the future, and it looks at how to prepare the body, mind, and spirit, and also enhance the DNA of the child while in the womb. This book is for everyone. Absolutely anyone can use it, but I focused on the population of women that have had babies or are about to get pregnant because I know that the next generation can change this planet. So today you're going to learn about what it means to be fertile. So I'm going to compare fertility to nature and how to increase your fertility by enhancing your senses. I'm going to also talk about the higher dimensions. So what it's like when I experience higher dimensions and how you would want to match the frequency of these higher dimensions in order to attract this higher caliber soul. Because without matching these higher dimensions and enhancing your sensory system and your awareness, you can't attract the soul, but you also wouldn't be able to hold a high caliber soul within you. I'm going to go into the first part of my book today, too. So I want to talk about the body and how to release density within the body through diet, which I won't specifically go into. I will have you listen to other podcasts for that. But I want to go into how to release generational patterns if we have time. And if not, I'll add another episode on for that. So to begin, I'm going to go briefly over epigenetics and what behavioral epigenetics is saying about pregnancy and what you need to know about your genes. So you are no longer a victim of your past or your family. You are actually a creator of your reality. And your thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and diet are being found to program your DNA. So we can no longer say that because your grandma was sick or had high cholesterol or had diabetes or any of these issues that you're necessarily going to actually get that disease or get that problem. It's more that will the gene turn off or on because of the environment it's put in. So I've heard a story that when the black sheep of the family leaves, so let's say you have a sister that's at home or a brother that's at home and you leave and you move away from your family. Your children are likely not going to get the same diseases or issues or emotional problems that your brother or sister's children would have if they were around the family, because all of them are still within the same generational patterns. They're still working out the same emotions. They still have similar belief systems, and they eat a diet probably similar to the family. So as the black sheep moves away, or as you change your frequency or whatever the way you want to put it, you're not necessarily going to pass those things on to the next generation. So what this book is doing, Fertile, is the purpose of it is to help women totally decrease the density, the physical density within their bodies by changing their thoughts, by enhancing their mind, by releasing all these generational patterns, which they found in studies are passed on through the DNA. So one example of a study was the parents of children, or the children of parents who had been in World War II, in the Holocaust. Those children suffered from PTSD. If both of the parents had PTSD, they got PTSD later in life, even if they didn't know both of the parents, which is completely fascinating. It's saying that memories can be passed down through generations. And all your ancestral trauma can be passed down through generations. So looking into the past and understanding what has happened to your family and knowing, the miscarriages that have happened, the pain, the diseases, the everything about your family, so you can clear it. Not that you can go into it and be sad about it, or you have to be like hopeless. It's no longer that. It's that, I have the power to change these things and to change my DNA so that I don't pass this on to the baby. So in my book, Fertile, the critical period of changing yourself is before you conceive or during pregnancy, because that is the most important period of motherhood. And this is something that it's just, there's no theories out there on it yet. And I'm hopefully creating one here now that says that the development is actually the, emotional, mental, and also, physical, but these emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of development of the child happen in utero. And it's interesting because I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, a master's in nursing, and a family nurse practitioner degree. And not one time in any of my education did any doctor or professor ever mention that the child inside the womb is conscious and it can be programmed, or that the mental state of the mother matters. And what I'm saying is it does, because what behavioral epigenetics has said is we can program the DNA. And so if cells are quadrupling at this massive rate while the baby's growing inside of you, it's only natural you're going to program the baby. So it's up to you if you consciously program that baby or not. And what we know about, the human behavior is that it takes a significant amount of time and energy to change the way you work in this world. So you can't just get pregnant and say, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to think better, I'm going to do better, I'm going to change my environment. It takes some significant amount of planning and almost an energy shift and a higher frequency to make those changes. So in Fertile, my goal is to reach the women that are on the road to pregnancy. And a lot of times these women are having problems getting pregnant so that gives them time and space almost to change their life before they bring this child down. And that's sometimes, most of the time, a good thing, so that when the baby actually comes through, they're a better mother and their children are better and they have a happier family. And so that's what mystical motherhood's about. It's about creating conscious and happy families. So that was a little introduction. I hope that helped, but I want to go into this step by step so you have a better understanding of how and why you can attract a higher vibrational being into your body at the time of conception. So when you conceive, whatever your frequency is at that moment, I believe, and the yogis believe, that you'll attract a similar type of soul. Maybe not conception, but at the 120th day, but that moment of conception creates the foundation of the type of soul that you can attract, right? So preparing for that moment of conception is critical, and clearing the physical density and the mental density and the spiritual density out of you by preparing your body, mind, and spirit is very, very important. Because I believe that in the future, and other people have said this, the rate of infertility is going to rise. And there's all kinds of reasons why they believe that people are going to become more infertile. According to Anthony William, who wrote The Medical Medium and many other best-selling books, infertility is supposed to rise up to 50% in the next 40 years. And we can say this is because of the amount of toxins, the food we eat, the pesticides. I mean, you can go on and on with the list of the vaccines. There's so many things. We don't really know what it's coming down to. And to be honest, I don't see enough articles on it out there. But what all this stuff is if you look at the world around you, there is an incredible amount of pain and destruction and disasters. And this is creating not only, destruction of the world, but destruction of the individual. So we're going into a new age on the planet, a golden age called the Age of Aquarius. And as we enter into this age, I believe that only really high caliber and enlightened souls are going to want to be birthed onto this planet. True or not? I don't know. But in order for these souls to get in, they have to have a woman that meets their frequency, that can actually hold that type of a high caliber being within her body. And so what's happening is, because of the destruction on the planet and the destruction within humans, less of these, I believe less of these children are going to want to can even get through, because of the physical density and spiritual density we're holding within us. So when I enter into these higher dimensions, it is palpably lighter. So let me just explain what it is to feel like you're in these higher dimensions, and my experience of this in the way that I can describe it with words. And this is important to understand so that you know the type of what you need to meet in order to become more fertile, to attract this type of child. And what it's about is really enhancing your senses. So it's enhancing your vision, your taste, your touch, your smell, your, relation to the environment around you, so that you become a more sensory aware person. And it's sort of like when you're walking in nature. And I'll go back into the higher dimensions in a second, but I want you to get a feel for what it's like to be in these higher dimensions in a way that you can understand it here on Earth. So have you ever been somewhere in nature I'm sure you all have, but you're walking in nature and you are feeling the breeze of the trees walk past you, and you can smell their scents. You can smell the flowers, and you can smell the green grass or the trees, and you can hear the seventh dimensional birds singing. If you're paying attention and you're not in your mind, there's all sorts of layers happening within nature. The colors are vibrant. Again, the smells, the sounds of your feet walking upon the path. And then just that open, expansive feeling of feeling completely connected. And maybe you feel this when you're talking with friends and you're so engaged, or you're at work and you're in the flow with things. So that's a higher sensory system. And when you have that higher sensory system, you have an increased intuition and knowing of what's going to happen in the future, and also what's happened in the past. With this higher sensory system, you can often, read people's thoughts or relate to people in a different way by reading their energy and almost relaying back information without speaking. So these higher dimensions are lighter. They're palpably lighter. It is more, it's like you just completely leave the physical density of Earth, and everything you think, feel, and say is done telepathically. So if I'm in these higher dimensions through my third eye as I rise up, or I'm in my body, but within time and space, it's like I receive, if I'm talking to a higher caliber being, which I do often, they will send me a symbol, or they'll send me a picture, and within the picture is 1,000 words, and a whole book could be written on that picture, or a whole sentence, and it moves much faster, and it is full of love, and the sounds are of that of creation, and it just has a higher frequency. So in order for you to attract this higher dimensional being, you need to increase your frequency. And the best way that I can think of you doing that here on Earth is by increasing your senses. So in another episode with Katerina, I went through the meditation that would kind of tell you what type of being you would attract at this moment. I told her to lay down, and I asked her to see what type of being she would attract if she would conceive right now. What does the energy look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? And you can go back to that episode, which I'll reference in the notes, and you can listen, it's in the middle of the episode, to that meditation, so that you can understand at this moment in time the type of frequency that you would attract as to where your senses are. But in order to attract your sense or increase your sensory awareness, you can do Kundalini yoga, which is written about in Mystical Motherhood. You can obviously eat a diet that's really, really healthy. You can, because when you eat a diet that's healthy, you're going to match the vibrational frequency of the plants, and you're going to have a higher intuitive awareness. You can also listen to better music. So you can choose to have a higher vibrational sound around you, which would be mantras. So, in the book, I describe a person or a scene that is not higher vibrational. So that would be a scene that you're under the bridge and the cars are moving over you and you see homeless people and it smells like fried chicken and you're stepping on glass and it just, the whole area is concrete. There's no nature. That is a lower vibrational field. We all know that, right? So if you're trying to attract a higher caliber being, you really need to think about everything in your environment before conception and while pregnant. So you want to, if you're at work, how can you enhance your work field so that it smells better, so that the sounds you're hearing are higher in caliber, so that the thoughts you're thinking are less negative. So a really good way to do this is to start a meditation practice. You're not going to have the same thoughts or negative attributes running through your mind. Another way to do this is to listen to mantras. So choose the type of things you allow in your environment. So if the TV's loud or it's really, really violent, you don't have to have it on. You don't have to listen to the news all day. You can choose to tailor what you allow around you so that your vibration remains at a really, really high rate for this high caliber child. So like a denser person is going to eat really unhealthy food. They're going to they're probably going to watch a lot of crappy TV with a lot of violence, with a lot of loud music that may, they're going to imbibe in more drugs and alcohol because they have a denser experience of reality. So you'd really want to think about, so at your work, let's go back to your work environment. So say you're working and you're in an office. So I taught Katerina this. So you would want to maybe add flowers to the office. Maybe put headphones on and listen to the white sun gong, or you could listen to certain mantras. And I talked about this in a lot of the other podcasts, different mantras you can listen to. You'd want to start a meditation practice in the morning. You'd want to be aware of who you're talking to and who you allow in your field. So are the conversations you have negative? Are they gossipy? Are they the type of words that you'd want to be putting out into the environment? And what are you paying attention to? So are you going on walks midday and are you paying attention to the birds? Are you paying attention to nature? And are you emulating nature so that you can increase your fertility? Because fertility, the best example we have of it is nature. So if you can emulate that within your body, I think you can become more fertile. And another thing you can do to become more fertile is to begin to clear your body out. So in the book Fertile, I broke it up into 4 sections. So first section is I will talk about when it's published, you'll see it goes into the scientific field and the spiritual field of how to create an enlightened child. It goes into the sacred geometry of conception and how the triangle, circle, and the square, which represent the body, mind, and spirit, not in that order, but each of those shapes matter at the time of conception as the cells are being produced within your womb. And all of your senses also matter. And so the book goes into how do you release the density within the body, mind, and spirit. So today I will go into part of the body section so you have a better understanding of how you can release these generational patterns, which will be passed down through the DNA to your child if you don't work with them before you have a baby, or even in between babies. If you've already had one, you can still do this. And even if you haven't had a baby, you can still do this. And if you don't want a baby, everyone can release their generational patterns. Everyone can clean up their diet. So in the body section of the book, I go deeply into the diet. And there's other episodes and podcasts I talk about the diet, but 2 things I really want you to hear today, as I keep repeating them, is the consequences of vegetable oil, which comes in the form of canola, safflower, grapeseed. Any heated oil, any oils that should not be heated are really, really toxic for the cells and cause inflammation. And another thing that causes a lot of inflammation is sugar, and in its unnatural form. So in the book, I go more into all types of, reasoning behind diet and how to space children and the importance of nutrition. But I just want to repeat that because you can read it, you can listen to another podcast about that. But I really want you to be reminded that to be careful about, fried foods and the amount of sugar you put into your body, at least before you conceive and during pregnancy, because it's super critical to not inflame your body, because your gut holds a lot of your DNA. Your gut has the most, your gut microbiome has the most amount of cells in your body, and the healthy bacteria will create healthy DNA. So creating a healthy gut and cleaning your diet out before you have a baby and conceive is critical to making sure that your DNA is strong, because that's where the DNA is held. And that's the argument in Fertile and also the details around that. But in the body section, I also went over how to clear generational patterns and how this is related to all of the elements. So I'm going to briefly as I can, go over the importance of clearing these now. When you don't release generational patterns, negative thoughts, or outmoded belief systems, your energy will become unbalanced, and it affects all of the elements within your body. And you can see this with the way that your life unfolds. So I'm going to go through what it looks like to have an unbalanced life via each element within your body. And then I'm going to go into what it looks like to have a balanced life with each element in your body, and how each of these elements, what happens when the elements become unbalanced and balanced. And then I'm going to teach you a quick way, you're going to have to read the book Fertile to go really deeply into it, but I'm going to teach you the importance of looking at your family history. And then in Fertile, you'll be able to read how to clear this generational history. In Mystical Motherhood, I gave a lot of great meditations, which can be found on Amazon, but meditations that can help to clear this physical density, so you can use those until this book is published. And these meditations will help to clear out the family trauma. They'll help to change your life and increase your frequency until you read a lot more about how to do this in my new book, Fertile. So first, I want to talk about the effects of unbalanced elements in your body when it comes, and I'm going to use the example of sexual abuse for this. So the earth element. This element can weigh you down when it's unbalanced. I need you to understand the earth element, you need to reflect on what your life looks like. And you can do this as, what does your life look like in a representation of a house? Because a house is a really good example of the earth element. When you're spiritually developing, it is common to dream of houses in different forms, and women are often dreaming. So if you're dreaming of houses at night, it means that you're really, really putting your life together. So I constantly dream of houses. I'm walking through this room or that room or different homes or scary homes, and it's just parts of my subconscious that I'm clearing. So is your current house dirty? Is it clean? Is it cluttered? Is it falling apart? Is it in need of minor repairs? Do you move around a lot? Do you often miss your rent, or do you even own a house? And when your life begins to crumble outside, do you have the ability to build your life back up into a solid structure? So I know you know someone who has a physical house, which is their body, that's falling apart. And so let's say you have been sexually abused in the past, or you have you can replace this with anything that, like a memory of sickness, of pain, a memory of miscarriage, of rape, of surgeries. Any physical abuse or anything that's physically happened to your body lives within the cells and the memories until it's cleared out. So when your earth is unbalanced, you won't be physically able to hold things. You won't have a strong and grounded nature, and everything around you will be, falling apart or cluttered or chaotic. So also, let's go on to the fire element. And all of this will be in relation to sexual abuse, but again, replace it with what you need to. So the fire element represents the abuse or the violence itself. It's the moment in time that burns a hole in your pocket. It's that pain that lives within you. It's the moment when the legs are spread. It's the moment of the loss of the child. And if you think about fire in nature, it's out of control. and it pierces through your heart and your soul, and it's painful. It burns continuously and continuously until it burns everything in its field around it. So if you have been sexually abused, you'll often attract people into your life, perpetrators or negative people that you can hurt back in order to gain control. So you'll constantly be lighting fires everywhere you go when your fire element's imbalanced. And it's often easier for people to see the weaknesses in others. So do you happen to have a friend that burns through partners or jobs, or do you burn through partners or jobs? Do you ever partake in mischievous activity or are you self-sabotaging? Do you constantly get something good and then, push it away? So that would be an unbalanced fire element, because it's super self-destructive, and anyone who has an unbalanced fire element will make painful choices, and they'll kind of hurt everyone around them. And it's important, if you have had something like this happen, like sexual abuse or any of these problems in the past, that you go back in time and you find the perpetrator and you energetically put the perpetrator in jail, or you make sure that they go to classes and healing. And I teach all how to do this in Fertile. But you need to make sure that that inner child knows that that perpetrator has had justice, because that's what makes the fire out of control later in life. And the self-sabotaging patterns continue. So the water element. When the water element is out of control, you may feel like you are drowning in continual grief. So there may be a lot of tears to be shed. Emotions may be suppressed. Depression, oppression is very, very common. So individuals whose water is out of control may push down all of these feelings, and then they explode out. And when they explode out, it's like the ocean, the tyrant of the ocean, and all the elements are held within it. So if your water's unbalanced, it would be like that person will have a breakdown, and then just every single element comes out. The earth, everything falls from under their feet. The fire comes out to be painful and hurt other people. The drowning of the tears is formed. The air, the windy element is the anxiety. So having this water imbalance really creates, boundaries within people. And it creates boundaries of what you allow in your life and who you allow in your life. And so it's important to have this element balanced. If you're overbuying, you're overeating, you're, continuously drinking alcohol, you're sleeping with too many people, or even oversleeping, you would probably have an unbalanced water element. And you may lie a lot. So an unbalanced water element, so example, I have friends that have been sexually abused in childhood, and they lie a lot because they were taught to lie as they got older. And so the unbalanced water element will cause a lot of lies because they're not even aware of who they truly are inside, because they've always pushed it down and they've always had to hide who they are. So it's really important to heal this so that you don't have, illusions about who you are in life, and illusions about, and everyone else doesn't have an illusion about who you are. Just if you don't know who you are, no one else will know who you are. And because that's what you'll project to the world. So an unbalanced wind element in your body, it creates a total whirlwind of a life. So this person may be harsh, austere, they may lose their femininity. So if you've ever seen someone who's, very, very tight, frail, tired, or stripped down of their life force, their air element may be out of balance. And this can make their heart shut down as a protection mechanism. So they sometimes and oftentimes can have like a tremendous amount of vigor and energy and a propensity to overachieve. And all of us have these unbalanced in some form at some point, right? So there's been times where I was in the realm of the hungry ghost, where I'm constantly moving, constantly trying to do, constantly, overachieving. And that's a form of depression in itself. And so that wind element can create that. It creates the the fight or flight. It is the element of anger. And if it's not properly released, it can create turbulence when it's not heard. So also it creates subpersonalities, which can be really, really hard to counterbalance. The final element, ether or prana. And when this is unbalanced, it's incredibly destructive. One of the most destructive. And if this element's unbalanced, I highly recommend you go to someone to work this out, because it can attract demons or spiritual entities onto you. So ether, ether works on the energy. What ether does when unbalanced is it makes you feel powerless. And you makes you feel completely exposed. And in these moments of exposure, you may call out for somebody. So let's say you've had a traumatic event in the past, or, you were physically abused, you were raped, you were sexually, something really, really bad happened to you. So you may be still caught in that moment in time. So maybe you're caught in the moment of age 15 when your boyfriend beat you up, something like that. And in that moment, you called out, you're at your lowest, your deepest, your most depressed time. And so you could call out for something to help you. And in that low vibrational field, you may attract an entity or a spiritual kind of like energy that sucks out your power for the rest of your life. And so this energy kind of is like a vampire. And so it creates your personality, and trigger mechanisms are developed over time that become the person's personal navigation system through life. So if a person has, this type of spirit attracted to them from this, really, really traumatic event, they may become incredibly sensitive to their environment. They may not be able to handle sounds, smells, or feelings, and they have trust issues. So they may be, get really close to you and then they push you away. And so this would be like a narcissistic personality could commonly have one of these kind of energies on them. You can call it narcissistic personality. You can call it, there's been books written on, vampire energy, but you could also say this is a high spiritual, that's a negative spirit that is attached to the person. So this is something you need help with. And I will put in the notes Celestine Star and Mystical Motherhood's information again, so that if you know someone who needs help with these unbalanced elements, you have somewhere to go. And a lot of this work that I'm speaking about now is based on Celestine Star's entire work. She's a healer and excellent healer and psychic and seer of the future and holder of memories, just an amazing woman. And she can help you get these off. And so I want you to reach out to Mystical Motherhood, and I'll put you in contact with her. So I'm going to go over briefly, in order to heal these, these patterns, all of these unbalanced elements will come up if, you're holding negative belief systems from your past, you have a lot of emotional baggage, you have traumatic memories you haven't let go of, you had a traumatic childhood. You need to clear it, because it'll all be passed on to the child, and you need to have these elements in balance when you conceive. So I put it up in another podcast. It's Healing Your Inner Child. This is episode number 22. You can go to that podcast number 22, and you can read and work out Healing Your Inner Child using my guest as an example. But I'm now going to go over what balanced elements in your body look like. And so you can know the difference. You can know when you're in balance, what it actually looks like when these, when life is going the way it should. And I'll briefly go over this. Again, all of this is going to be in my new book, Fertile, but I want you to have a good idea of what you're going to get when you buy it. So the earth element, this element will keep your life and your body grounded. So when it goes into balance, you can easily build things. You can create a career, you can get a house, you can have a good family life. It is the structure that magnetizes awesome opportunities to you. So whatever you choose to excel in becomes possible because your auric field is grounded into Mother Earth, and you've created a solid structure where things can't fall apart anymore. Opportunities will come to you, become more magnetic, and you can hold money because when you're grounded, when your auric field is grounded into the earth, you can not only create things, but you can also hold them. And without that, you will not be able to hold money if you don't have a strong auric field that's deep into the earth. When the fire element is grounded, you become a living expression of God, and the God force energy or the Kundalini life force will move through you with a power. And it's a creative power. It's a focused energy. It brings creativity. It brings divinity. And whatever you choose, it could be, creating a child, being a mother. It can be your career. It can be writing, even just taking pictures. It all has an energy behind it. And when that happens and you gain that type of passion, just like, the power of attraction talks about, or what you've heard from, things like The Secret, that book, it's like your destiny becomes evident because you begin to create a higher frequency and, fulfill things so that you'll start to clear it all and you go moving forward into what you're really supposed to do here on earth because your passion for life is high. Your energy is abundant. You're focused and you're charismatic. And you're becoming a diamond within the fire. When your water element is balanced, you have a relaxed emotional body that is able to expand and contract in an appropriate manner. You will become like a container and able to hold your energy and also hold other people within your field. So there's an expansiveness to the water. If you think of the consciousness in the ocean, that's what you become when you're balanced. And you're like an edge of a pool. So you become, you think of water in a pool, you have boundaries that become natural. So you know where your natural contracts with people end and begin. And this brings widened opportunities because life becomes beautiful and it flows and there's intelligence and you become reliable because you're not only then when your water element's imbalanced, you have truth running through your words and people can trust you because you trust yourself. When the wind element is in balance, it is predictable. So when it's out of balance, you're like a tornado. You can burn bridges and you go through life like a train. So when it's in balance, there's a calmness and there's an assuredness to your behavior and a determination to what you're doing here on earth. And you begin to see clearly all around you. So when once that it was like out of control, you're no longer running away from your past and you're going into a more maturity in who you are as a person, who you're here to serve and what you're here to do. And with that, your nervous system calms down. And you're also able to speak and listen better because you don't have that high anxiety running through you. And the best one, when your ether is in balance, so we know when your ether is out of balance, it can go really negative with all kinds of spiritual energy getting off key or attracting negative things to you. So when it is in balance, you can work with the higher realms of reality. And this becomes really, really easy. You become physically, emotionally, and mentally and spiritually attuned to this higher consciousness all of the time. So the angelic realms, the higher dimensions, the ascended masters, these higher beings become accessible because you're able to match their frequency. And your lighter energy you have lighter thoughts. You don't have the dense belief systems or generational patterns that were connected to your family of origin. Your auric field becomes strong and powerful because you've taken the time to clear it. And you love people and they love you back. So whatever you dream of, you create because you become like a god on earth. And when you're, all of these elements in balance. So if you compare the unbalanced elements with these balanced elements, what type of child would each of these people attract? So if you're out of whack and you're unbalanced and your elements are imbalanced, you're going to create, as we've known with behavioral epigenetics, your DNA is passed on, whatever the thoughts, the emotions, the environment, diet, the mother is thinking at the time of pregnancy and conception is going to create that child. So having these elements in balance before and during pregnancy will create a child that is more enlightened. It doesn't make any sense any other way. In Fertile, I teach you how to build an altar for your child. I teach you how to tap into your intuition. I teach you how to create a family tree and to look into the past to understand everything that's happened to your family on every single, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual layer in order to clear it. And then I take women through I use alchemy to transmute these patterns from the past in order to create a better future and attract an enlightened child. This was a lot of information. There's so much more I didn't share. And I'm so excited to do that in the future with you. So I will continue to talk about Fertile until it is published sometime in 2019, I believe. And I will go through all the parts of the body, mind, and spirit. And please share this with any woman that you know who's about to have a baby, who's having problems with infertility, who wants to clear the generational patterns. It's so important. So if you liked this podcast, please, please, please leave a comment or a rating. It makes all the difference in the world. If you'd like to work with me privately, you can write into mysticalmotherhood.com. If you'd like to purchase my first book, Mystical Motherhood, it's available on Amazon, and everything can be found at the Mystical Motherhood website. All podcasts and I created a video for every blog post for you to have the most information of how to create your best life. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you again next week.